Today we have our box shoulder stretch for 40 seconds, 40 seconds of kip practice on the pull-up bar, and then 40 seconds of nose and toes weight transfer. We do that 3 times each. The nose and toes weight transfer is a wall-facing handstand hold, hollow position, nose and toes handstand hold, once you're in that position, trying to transfer the weight back and forth from the left hand to the right hand. This can be without leaving or having the hands leave the ground, or progressing all the way to the point where the hands leave the ground and touch the respective shoulders. The kips are initiated by pressing down on the bar into a hollow position and then opening aggressively into a tight arch. Tight meaning the only extension that we should see is at the hip and spine. We shouldn't see any flexion of the elbows or knees. The Metcon for the day, I didn't put any specific modifications just because there could potentially be a lot, and they're pretty standard movements, and then pretty standard movements to scale. So it's basically whatever sort of fits the workout best for you. So the C progression is a AMRAP in 20 minutes, as many reps as possible in 20 minutes, with a buy-in of 75 sit-ups, 30 toe to bar, 10 cones seal walks, 75 hip back extensions, 20 glute ham raise, 10 more cones of seal walks, and then as many reps as possible starts when you get to the rope, and you get as many rope climbs in the remainder of 20 minutes. The goal isn't to get there super fast. I mean, if we were to break down rep by rep of the previous movements, we're over 200 repetitions, and there's some pretty big chunks to get to complete before moving on, specifically the sit-ups and the back extension. So, if it were 210 repetitions doing 10 rounds of 10 or something like that, or 10 rounds of 20 even, 20 rounds of 10 or 10 rounds of 20, to get to the 200 reps, that's a little bit different than taking larger chunks out of it at once, because you have to get all of those reps done before moving on, which is typically going to sort of force a little bit more rest time. So 75 sit-ups particularly, if I'm doing those in sets of, even if I'm doing them in sets of 25, if it's a 1-to-1 work-to-rest ratio or a 0.5-to-1 work-to-rest ratio, that's still taking a pretty big chunk of time before moving on to the next movement. And then going from one core flexion to another core flexion is only going to make the next the next 30 repetitions of toe to bar that much more challenging. Then maintaining a nice solid plank position while we traverse across the floor in a seal walk, that much more challenging. And then we go right back through 75, 20, and 10, where we switch focuses to the posterior. 75 hip back extension, again taking a pretty big bite out of the subsequent 100 or so repetitions in this chipper, just with the hip back extensions. So that's going to be work for 20 seconds, rest for 20 seconds, or something like that. So for 20 repetitions, it's going to be, about 40 seconds, given that example. Then we have 20 glute ham raise, again, going from one hip extension movement to another, just a more or a less forgiving one, rather, is going to make those 20 reps, which is why, first of all, glute ham raise, we don't need a ton of those for it to be productive, but also after doing the 75 hip back extensions, those are going to be pretty spicy. So pay special close attention to those. If you're warming up beforehand and you try a couple of glute ham raises and you are successful without a band or with a light band, but you think, I don't know, like those are going to be pretty slow. They're going to be even slower, trust me, after the 75 hip back extensions. Then you've got 10 more cones of seal walk. I keep saying cones for anybody that doesn't have much experience doing our seal walks. With the seal walks, we typically put up 4 cones on the second story, and the first cone being the starting blocks, essentially the starting line, and then you can count each cone or every other cone or every third cone, just whatever fits your current skill set with the seal walks. If you feel like you are a seal walk juggernaut, then you can count every length, all like from one end to the next, every 3 cones. If you feel like you're sort of an intermediate, then you could count every 2 cones. And if you feel like you are sort of just dipping your toe into the seal walk water, you can count every 1 cone, or you can count every 2 or 3 shoulder taps from a plank position. For the rope climbs after that, there's a lot of different ways to scale a rope climb, but being that once you get there, it's essentially just get what you can. So this may be a solid opportunity for anybody who has done some rope climbs, but doesn't really feel doing them in a workout where maybe it's rounds for time and you have to get a specific number of rope climbs done. This one doesn't have a designated amount, so to just automatically default to a rope lower, there may be a more productive use of your time and efforts in a workout like this to try to get a rope climb or 2. With that said, if it's grip, I always recommend the rope lower. If it's not grip, if grip is not the issue, but it's the footlock, then I always encourage practicing the footlock and counting, any successful footlocks as a climb, among others. The toe to bar can be modified toe to beam. I'm a big fan of that. Also toe to something. Just practice the C-kip and get as much range of motion as you possibly can. GHD, ab mat sit-ups, but if you would normally do ab mat sit-ups, if it called for ab mat sit-ups, then I'm always a fan of taking it up a notch so that way you're not doing the same movement for GHD sit-ups that you would do for an ab mat sit-up. And likewise for the back extension. If you would normally modify the back extension, rather you would normally do the back extension, then doing more back extension for the glute ham raise doesn't make much sense. So we would want to add a little bit of distraction to it, maybe add a lightweight hugging it to our chest, just to make the hip back extensions a little spicier for the 20 that are supposed to be glute ham raise. You can also use a band to do banded glute ham raise. And for the seal walks, I think we already covered those.